Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 2, Episode 2 of HBO's The Last of Us, entitled Through the Valley. So I'm going to approach how I discuss this episode a bit differently from how I traditionally do it. Generally, I start with my overall thoughts, then I'll kind of move through the episode talking about what happened while, honing in on major moments. Today I want to talk about this episode as a moment in TV history, because that's what it is. Like, even if you didn't like the episode or you don't like what happened or have some sort of sourness toward it for whatever reason, whether that's something that happened in the game, whatever the case may be, we'll talk about some of that. Even if you didn't like it, this episode has now entered the conversation of memorable moments and episodes in TV history. And rather than going, this thing happened and then this thing happened, which is, admittedly, that's an oversimplification of what I do here, but still, rather than do that, I want to talk about what made this episode special, the comparisons to the game and the future of this season and the show as a whole. And before I continue, I want to make sure I'm clear. When I say comparisons to the game, I have not played the game. So I'm getting to that, but I want to say I haven't played the game. What I'm going to be talking about when I say comparisons to the game is how people generally look at it. So I'll just start there. That's the first thing I want to talk about. Like I said, I haven't played the game. Well, technically, I've played some of the first one, so I'm familiar, but I haven't completed it, nowhere near it. I probably played maybe like an hour or two, something like that, and I haven't played any of the second game. And here's the thing about the game. I don't give a fuck about the game. like, don't tell me how the show has done it differently, better, worse. I promise you, I don't give a fuck, man. Like, I'm watching and judging the show. Like, what happened in the game has no impact on that. Like, if you're just like, yeah, well, in the game they did, I don't give a fuck how they did it in the game. I'm not watching the game. So any opinions of the show that revolve around comparing it to the game, they don't interest me. I'm judging it as a TV show, not as an adaptation of a video game. Side note, you know how they talk about people who are vegan or do yoga or do CrossFit? Like how they say those people always somehow manage to find a way to bring up in conversation that they are that or they do that. The only people who do that more than those people are people who have read the book, or in this case, played the game of something that has been adapted into a popular movie or TV show. Like, I guarantee you that everybody who has played the game, their review starts with, well, in the game. Like, man, people want to show off that they know the material before the show or film hits so badly, and it's irritating. Anyway, additionally, another thing I wanted to bring to light is that I've managed to avoid spoilers. So I'm going to be giving my thoughts as someone who only watched the show and did not see this coming, and wasn't spoiled on it. Which, I didn't care for the constant kind of like winking that the game players have been doing ever since Caitlin Dever was cast to play Abby. It was like this something like I know something is coming and I know what it is and there's something, but I'm not gonna say anything. Wink, wink. And it's like that's kind of annoying, but I have to admit, when it comes to actually like spoiling the events of the game, at least in my social media atmosphere, the gamers did a good job. Like I heard a whole lot of teasing of big events and strong feelings toward Abby, but I entered this episode completely unspoiled. So everything that happened was news to me. And even though I knew that fans were passionate about this Abby character, I didn't know why. So shout out to the game players, man. They kept the shit on the low, which was probably very, very, very difficult to do. All that to say, my experience of watching this episode, as well as my opinion on it, are completely unsoiled by the game or any controversies surrounding the game or its characters, aka things that have no bearing on the quality of the show. Having said that, my opinion on this episode is that it is like an all-timer. You could throw this one right up there in the TV Hall of Fame with great episodes from The Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. Like, it's a new classic episode. But let's get into talking about why, in case you don't agree with me, because an unexpected death, that's not enough. Like, just, I'm surprised at what happened at the end. That's not what makes a classic episode. This episode did a great deal more than that, so let's talk about it. Hey everybody, I just want to take a small break from this review to talk about the various other ways you can engage with me on other platforms. If you're so inclined, and I understand why you wouldn't, I am an acquired taste, but you can join the Patreon where you can get extra content like retro reviews, where I review old shows and movies to see if they still hold up today. Mike's Musings, where I talk about shows I'm watching that I don't cover on the channel, or Mike's VOD, where you can commission me to watch a show, which I will then review on the channel. And if you want to engage with me and chat with me more directly, I also implore you to join the Discord and follow the Facebook page. I set up channels in the Discord for all of us to discuss the shows I'm reviewing on the channel, and I also drop new videos in there, since it's the easiest platform for me to share to from my phone. The Facebook can be really fun because I sort of live comment on shows I'm watching, often while under the influence, I'm not going to lie. And I'll also share news there, both about television and film, and about myself as well. So if you like my content, you want to be more engaged, you think I'm charming, or you simply want to show support, feel free to sign up for the Patreon or join the Discord or Facebook today. Links to all platforms are in every video description. Remember to share all my shit to your respective social media platforms. And now back to this review. In the future, when I think about this episode, I'm not going to be solely thinking about Joel's death. Like, that's the episode where they killed Joel. Like, a lot of people compare this episode to the Red Wedding episode from Game of Thrones, which I won't spoil here for both of you who haven't seen it. But I think this episode is compared to the Red Wedding because of the Joel situation. But for me, a better comparison was the Hard Home episode of Game of Thrones, another classic Game of Thrones episodes, and Game of Thrones got a shit ton of them. But a lot of people complained about, the lack of big action set pieces in season 1, and I think this episode heard those complaints and delivered what was probably the most exhilarating episode of TV since Hard Home. Like, starting from Abby sliding down that mountain and waking up the zombies, and side note, there was some heavy-duty foreshadowing from my man from Beef, who I now know his character's name is Jesse, so I'm not going to call him Beef or my man from Beef no more. His character's name is Jesse. But there's some heavy foreshadowing. He's like, they were hiding under the bodies of their own dead. And I'm like, well, shit, that's going to come around. That's going to come around later. So when Abby slides down that mountain and you see the arms and legs poking out of the snow, you're meant to put 2 and 2 together regarding Jesse's comment and start to get nervous. Like, oh shit, there might be some sleeping under the snow and under those dead bodies. And sure enough, from that point on, it just escalates and escalates and escalates. But here's what made it cool was that it always exceeded the scale that I was expecting. My mind was set toward, your typical scene from this show. A handful of zombies were going to wake up from underneath the snow, and you have your standard action sequence that involved Abby and maybe 3 to 6 zombies. We're going to think, oh, she's almost going to die, and then she's going to kill them, or someone's going to come help them. The same shit that happens. But no. 100 million billion of these motherfuckers wake up and are chasing her down the side of the goddamn Matterhorn, and leading to one of the coolest and most intense action sequences I've seen in a long time. The scene where they have her trapped behind the chain link fence. Man, that shit was intense. And you got the one zombie splitting its hand in half, trying to grab her through the chain link. That was fucking sick. And then you get out of that awesome scene just to be met with the reality of her being saved by the person she's there to kill. And sticking with my comparisons to Hard Home, this episode gets extra hard homey when the zombies arrive at the wall. I'm sorry, the gates of Jackson, not the wall. And they're just throwing their bodies into it. This whole time, even though those moments are these moments are great, I'm still I still have not accepted the reality of just how bad this is. That's what Hard Home was. This constant escalation where you're thinking things are going to be like they normally have been through the previous almost, the 4.5 seasons of Game of Thrones that existed prior to that. There's still kind of a max level of action that you're expecting. And in season 5, episode 8, I wasn't expecting what I got. And so the escalation continued to blow me away. And even though you had all the zombies running into the wall, I'm still not thinking this is about, I'm in the middle of an all-time great episode here. I'm still thinking something's going to happen and this is going to relax. Let me just sit back and see what happens. I'm not really considering the town to be at risk or the people there. This is episode 2. What am I going to do? I'm oh yeah, they're going to kill everybody in episode 2. What are they going to do for the other 8? But like I said, this episode is just an exercise in escalation because those zombies get through and they immediately begin to tear this town and its residents apart. And this was foreshadowed too. we have the scene where Tommy's explaining to everybody how, like, it's fine. But in the completely and totally unlikely event that everything isn't fine, like, I just want y'all to, for absolutely no reason at all, know that the plan is for the women and children to get in the basement and the men to take the high ground. And again, I'm in the moment like, that's going to matter later. I guess I just didn't realize it was going to matter 20 minutes later and not 7 episodes later. And at this point, this thing seems to have escalated to like an uncontainable degree. And now I'm sitting here thinking that, again, I'm like stepping out of the space where I'm thinking like I'm watching a normal episode. And I'm like, is everybody here going to die? Like, is this really happening? I thought this was episode 2. Is this the season finale? And then like you got the giant fucking zombie going after Marie. And then Tommy distracts it. Tommy's going at it with the flamethrower. And you got all this excitement, intensity, and all y'all want to talk about is Joel? Like, man, this episode is a classic because it put an all-time classic shocking death in the same episode as an all-time classic intense set of magnificently executed action sequences. Like, you usually get one or the other. Like, you don't get both. And like this thing was exhilarating to watch, and then even in its lower moments that aren't exhilarating, they cap that off with a top-tier shocking death. So speaking of which, moving on to Joel, we follow him and Dina as they go on patrol, and Ellie and Jesse, they go on a separate patrol a little bit later out. And Joel and Dina happen upon Abby during during their outing, and we learn about a weed dispensary that is I don't know, who did he say it was there? Eugene, that's right. I wanted to mention that because that was a little piece of something we learned about Eugene, who was the husband of Catherine O'Hara's character, the psychiatrist that she's mad at Joel for killing. Like, now, interesting thing, like, Joel's dead now. Like, are we going to learn about what happened with that through flashbacks, through other people's conversations? Because this guy, Jesse, brought up Eugene in this makeshift weed dispensary that he made. Eugene seems to have been somebody pretty important. But all jokes aside about the weed dispensary, we get valuable info here too. Like, valuable info that in retrospect was pretty ominous foreshadowing for Joel. Like, Jesse talks about how Joel and Ellie have been at each other's throats lately. And Ellie's like, regardless of our current situation, I'm still me, he's still him. We still got our shit. Nothing's ever going to change that. And I remember thinking in that moment, like, good. She may be upset with him, but she can still see the forest for the trees. Like, she's not going to be completely unreasonable. So a real bad snowstorm hits just as both Joel and Ellie, separately, but at the same time, realize that something has gone wrong back in Jackson. Abby convinces Joel to take her back to the lodge that her cohorts are hiding out at, and Ellie learns over the radio that Jackson has been unable to get in contact with Joel and Dina. So her and Jesse ride out to find Joel and Dina, while Joel, Abby, and Dina make the treacherous ride back to the cabin. They get back, and the show wastes no time letting us know that the shit is about to go down by having Joel and Dina immediately say each other's names very casually and believably, and in a situation where you would expect them to be saying each other's names as soon as they walked in the door. And I love that decision because it immediately got like an oh shit reaction out of me and my wife, because that's a lot smarter of a way to alert Abby that she has Joel, rather than the much simpler and more likely to be utilized way of just having her question him. But once she shot his legs out from under him, I really started to entertain the idea that this might be going somewhere unexpected. Like, you never think that the main character is going to get killed, at least prior to Game of Thrones existed. You never think that the main character is going to get killed. And then even now, you're like, well, I'm not watching Game of Thrones, so that's unlikely. But you especially don't think it's going to happen in the second episode of the season. But after she shot the legs out from under him and took the golf club to him, I mean, we see Ellie riding up like just in time to prevent her from killing him. And I'm like, oh man, they might actually end up doing this shit and making her watch. And the only thing that made this moment slightly less shocking is that this has been done a few times now. Like, Game of Thrones kind of set the tone for like the possibility of killing off someone you traditionally wouldn't expect to get killed. Now, like, it feels like no one's really off the table, so I can't be fully surprised. But in this current TV landscape, that's about as surprised as I could get. It's one of those things where, like, because of Game of Thrones, as events were unfolding, I accepted the reality that this might actually happen. Whereas prior to Game of Thrones, I'd have been sitting there like, it wouldn't have even worked. I'd have been sitting there like, yeah, he's not going to get killed. Whatever. They're going to kill the fucking hero in the second episode? No, whatever. And then, just like what happened the first time I watched Game of Thrones, they did it, and I didn't believe it. I was like, no. He played the next episode to make sure. And he was dead. But the death was violent and gruesome. The reaction from Bella Ramsey was great. And I'm still shocked. Not that Joel is dead, but because not only were they able to pull this off, but they pulled it off in an episode that, again, featured way more than this. Like, they went all out for this episode, and I found it to be a pretty resounding success. So what now? Like I said, I haven't played the game, so I can only speculate, but I wonder how the show is going to perform from this point on. Like, a lot of the appeal of season 1 is that it was a zombie show, but it featured like really authentic and heartfelt human relationships highlighted by the one between Joel and Ellie. With Joel now gone, you theoretically lose that piece. So like, how does the show keep its heart? I think that's a big question going forward. If it devolves into a sheer action thriller, it will probably still be great to watch, and it would probably be world-class action thriller. But I think it would be also indisputably less than season 1, because season 1 aspired to be something a bit better and a bit more than that. So they have to find a way to keep the heart and the emotion while moving forward what will undoubtedly be a riveting Ellie revenge plot. And honestly, I have faith in the creators and the Druckmann that did the game. I mean, like, you don't kill off the main character early without having a plan. Like that, especially with a video game. I don't know how far. I know it was at the beginning, but I don't know how far. Like maybe 2 hours into the gameplay, like you could have had 20 hours left, game left without the hero. So like you don't do something like that without a plan. So I feel like whatever is gonna follow is gonna be probably pretty solid. I can understand people being concerned about it not being that way, but I mean, like I said, they've got a history of they've already pulled this off with the game. There's no reason to suspect that they can't translate that to the show. And Craig Mazin's great. He's had done a great job with everything that he's touched. So, like, I'm pretty convinced that we're going to get a pretty good season. But lastly, and this still ties into the heart of the show piece, I love how this season is taking one event and showing us, like, two, not even just interpretations, but, like, the two paths that emerged from it. Joel saving Ellie in the season 1 finale and shooting all those fireflies was like, look at this surrogate father taking on this heroic role to save his adopted daughter. And now we see that exact same event from Abby's perspective and realize that the same event that portrayed Joel as a hero is also Abby's villain origin story. And I think that's kind of cool. So I'm interested to see how the rest of this plays out. I think it's going to become more than just, Abby and Ellie want to kill each other. I've heard good things about this game, so I would imagine that we're going to get something a little bit deeper than like a revenge plot and an action thriller. But like I said, interested to see what's going to happen going forward without Joel. I'm expecting a lot of flashbacks still, because I doubt Pedro Pascal was able to get away with agreeing to do this shit for 2 episodes. He's probably going to pop up some more again anyway, but let me know what you thought in the comments. I'll even allow those of you who played the game to provide me with some game-related context. But until next time, peace.